My wife, Gwen, took a sip of wine, took a deep breath, and looked me straight in the eye, adopting a serious expression after we finished our Valentine's Day dinner. We had always taken this holiday seriously since we'd gotten married 22 years ago. This evening was a very special night for us. We had always eaten at home, a tradition that came about because of the meager beginning of our marriage when we couldn't afford to dine in restaurants. But at least we always dressed specially to make the occasion extra special. I was dressed in a strict tuxedo, and Gwen looked stunning, as she had every year before, in a tight red dress that emphasized every curve of her body. Her dark brown hair had been meticulously styled by the hairdressers earlier in the day. With each passing year, she seemed to look more and more beautiful. After the kids came along, Valentine's Day became an even more important date for us. We used it as a way to reconnect with each other and bring romance back into our marriage after the chaos that children brought into our lives. And I think it was Valentine's Day that helped our marriage grow stronger. Our son Jake was spending the night at Gwen's parents' house, and Charlotte, our oldest daughter, was away from home attending her last year of college. "Matthew, we need to talk," Gwen said, after she took a sip of wine and set the glass down in front of her. At that moment, I realized she had something serious to say to me, because she called me Matthew instead of Matt. She always called me Matthew when she needed to talk to me about something important. "Matthew, I love you. Matthew, I'm pregnant. Matthew, we should get married before the baby comes. Matthew, I'm pregnant again. Matthew, I want to be a stay-at-home mom. And Matthew, I want to go back to work." Well, you get the idea. So it was with some unsettling inner trepidation that I asked, frowning my eyebrows, "What's the matter?" "Well, you and I have been married for a while now, and lately I've been thinking a lot about my past, especially when it comes to my sex life," she began from afar. "H-O-R-O-S-H-O," I said slowly. At that, the hairs on the back of my neck began to stand up. I had a terrible feeling that something very serious was about to happen, especially since she had only mentioned her sex life and not our sex life. "As you know, you were my only sexual partner, and it was you who took my virginity. On the other hand, you had already had sexual experience when we met," Gwen reminded her. "I only slept with 2 other girls before you and I started dating," I laughed sarcastically, defensively. "I'd only had sex a total of 3 or 4 times, so I couldn't consider myself a particularly experienced guy sexually. To be honest, I think I was pretty inept in bed. But anyway, go on." "Well, the thing is, Matthew, is that, for what it's worth, you slept with 2 other girls, and I got pregnant with Charlotte just a few months into our relationship," Gwen continued, as if complaining about some supreme injustice. "The one mistake I've never regretted," I smiled. The truth was that I panicked at the time. I was young, stupid, and terribly afraid that I had knocked up my girlfriend at an age when I was too young to be a father. A tough man-to-man conversation with my father put me in my place and made me realize what was central to my young life. Gwen and I ended up getting married. Yes, it was a classic shotgun wedding, except my dad held the shotgun, and against all odds, our marriage was a success. It was enough to bring Jake into the world a few years later. At least up until now, I thought we had a great and solid union, but now I had this nagging feeling that any minute now Gwen was going to draw a line under our hitherto happy marriage. Gwen smiled and nodded in agreement at my comment. "Me too," she said cheerfully. "Anyway, I've been thinking a lot about what it's like to have sex with other men, and it's an area I'd really like to explore. In short, I'd like to make our marriage open." "Shit," I whispered faintly, and my heart nearly stopped beating in my chest. I knew it. That figurative wrench she'd thrown at me was huge, and it was flying fast, spinning straight at my head. "So, what do you think?" she asked, watching my reaction carefully. I was a little alarmed. No, I was very alarmed at her lack of nervousness when she asked that question. Gwen had just dropped a huge bomb on our marriage, and without the slightest hint of concern, she asks me what I think about it. "Jesus, Gwen!" I exclaimed, trying to pull myself together. "You're asking me this on Valentine's Day, on our special night. Just like that, you're presenting me with a decision I've already made. What if I say no?" "I sincerely hope you don't say no. It's very important to me, but that doesn't mean I love you any less." She tried to sort of reassure me, again, without any hint of emotion. Considering where we started, you've made me the happiest woman in the world, so I don't want our marriage to suddenly end. It's not you, it's just me. I just want to experience sex with other men. And how long do you plan to experience sex with other men? I asked sarcastically. By the way, why don't you tell me how many men you're going to have sex with before your curiosity is satisfied? Honestly, I don't know exactly either of those things yet. I'm just sure that's what I need to do, she replied again calmly. Fine. At this point, my intuition began to signal loudly that this clearly smelled of deception, and I decided to see if I was right. So, how do you think this will work? If we open our marriage, you wouldn't mind if I started sleeping with other women, would you? I asked casually, testing her mettle. No way. I told you it's about me, not us, Gwen said firmly, emphasizing the words me and us. I don't think I could stand it if you slept with other women. I laughed almost hysterically at this statement from my wife. Are you serious? I asked her between fits of laughter. Are you telling me that you plan to sleep with other men, and I'm supposed to sit at home and wait humiliatedly for you like some kind of cuckold, and yet I'm not allowed to sleep with other women? Don't be rude, Matt, Gwen snapped at him. I repeat, this is not about us. This is about me needing to scratch my itch a little. I can't believe you're being so difficult about this. It's plain and simple, and it's no big deal. Many married couples do this and yet continue to live in a happy marriage. What does that mean? No big deal? And what couples are you referring to? Name me one specifically. Gwen sat silently without answering and with her lips stubbornly pressed together with a look of intense irritation on her face, although for some reason she couldn't look me straight in the eye anymore. So, where do you plan to meet these other men? I interrupted the long, tense pause when it was obvious that she wasn't going to answer. Well, I'd meet them wherever I saw a man I liked. Like at the office or... Wait a minute. Do you already have someone in mind? I asked suspiciously, interrupting her mid-sentence. I don't think it was a coincidence when she first mentioned the office. As Gwen blushed thickly almost immediately, I got my answer. The rat was about to poke its curious nose out of its hole. Now Gwen was watching me tensely, narrowing her eyes as I leisurely filled my glass with a new and very large portion of wine. Do you agree to open our marriage or not? She pressed on, and her voice seemed to have an insistent plea in it. By my reaction, I made it clear to Gwen that I was not satisfied with the terms she had laid out, and I, in turn, sensed that she was beginning to panic at not getting the answer she wanted. In one deep gulp, I nearly emptied my wine glass before I answered her. Here's the thing, Gwen. Everything you've told me here is bullshit, isn't it? Matt, how dare you? I wanted to come to a mutual decision, made together as a couple. Ha! And you say that what you insist on doing is mutual? I parried with indignation and made a sarcastic air quote on the last word. What's the matter with you? Gwen looked truly furious now. Mark Taylor, I said with a grin, looking her straight in the eye. The two words instantly made Gwen feel like a bomb had exploded, or more like a balloon that had suddenly burst and let all the air out. Well, who? All her anger immediately disappeared, but suddenly showed a nervous trembling, which was surprisingly absent at the beginning of our conversation. Cut the crap! Now I was angry. Mark Taylor, your co-worker, he joined your company about 8 months ago. You must have taken a liking to him, and he must have taken a liking to you because you've been seeing each other behind my back for how long? 3? Or is it 4 months? How's that for a mutual decision? Seems to me like you've had our marriage open for a while now and are enjoying how smart and sneaky you are. Although I can't recall ever giving you permission to explore with that Marky sucker. Under any other circumstances, the expression on Gwen's face at that moment would have been worthy of an artist's brush painting a masterpiece of shocked emotional reaction. Her mouth dropped open, her eyebrows flew up in astonishment, and her eyes rounded in stunned consternation. I could almost see her brain working at breakneck speed, racing back and forth one thought after another. How did I know? When did I know? How much did I know? These were the questions Gwen asked herself before she finally managed to pull herself together and mentally ask herself, how can I save the situation? Yes, I admit I liked Mark, she began cautiously, and we discussed the possibility of having sex together. However, we both agreed that without your blessing, we would be uncomfortable doing it. Without my blessing? And if I say no, what will you do? I asked her again. Gwen didn't answer, sitting across from me with irritation bubbling up inside her, evident in the tightness of her lips on her head, the jowls running up and down her cheekbones, and her hands now tightly clenched into fists, now nervously smoothing the fabric of her skirt over her hips. Are you trying to tell me that nothing happened between you two? No sex? No kissing? No dating? Again, interrupting the pause, I insisted on answers, hoping to get some of the truth out of my wife. Okay, we had a few dates, Gwen admitted with obvious reluctance. Yes, we've kissed, but we haven't slept together. Well, I guess I was in the middle of what I'd heard was called a truth leak. Well, I said without much enthusiasm. And Mark's wife is okay with that? Again, Gwen's face flashed with fear and surprise before she pulled herself together and answered, trying to make her voice sound confident. Yes, she doesn't mind. Mark practices polyamory, and so does his wife. Clarissa is perfectly happy with this state of affairs, and she has a second partner, too. Polyamory is something I'd like to explore. You might want to, but I don't, I said flatly. Now Gwen was getting worried. She realized that I was entangling and knotting her free-spirited betting aspirations, but she still wasn't sure how much I knew. Well, open relationships and polyamory aren't for everyone, and I knew they wouldn't work for you. Open relationships or polyamory. So what exactly are you talking about? Now I was playing her like a cat and mouse. They're actually different things. Yeah, well, I don't really know yet, so I want to explore both, she mumbled, not knowing which way to turn. Both? An open relationship is when you're in a primary relationship, but you're free to sleep within boundaries agreed upon and respected by both parties. Polyamory is when you have simultaneous love affairs with multiple people. Does your boyfriend Marky know you want to fuck your ass off, or haven't you told him that yet? Funny how Gwen's mouth opened and closed, just like a fish thrown on the sand when she couldn't think of what to say. And her eyes, by the way, were bulging just the same. It was too easy to catch her. No, that's not what I meant, she finally muttered in frustration. Alas, this conversation was not going the way she would have liked it to. She looked absolutely distraught at being caught, figuratively speaking, with her panties down. What did you mean by that? I asked. By the way, I don't remember signing up for polyamory or open marriage when we got married. Let's face it, you just want me to let you cheat after you've already cheated. You wanted permission to have an affair with Mark while keeping our marriage safe and making me the perfect cuckold, didn't you? Seeing the absent look on her face and the eyes running back and forth when she couldn't think of anything else to say for herself, because I had read her intentions completely, was enough for me. God, this is getting boring. I thought this was going to be a lot more complicated than what I'm seeing now, I stated, slamming my palms on my knees and getting up from my chair. Leaving Gwen with a confused look on her face, I pulled my phone out of my pocket, stepped to the window and stood half-turned to watch my wife's reaction, then dialed the number and made the call. Hey, Clarissa, how's Valentine's Day going at your house? Personally, I'm ready to file the papers now. I laughed softly. Well, I've made her tie herself in so many tight knots that she can hardly ever untangle them. Ha-ha, Now my mouth was already ajar in amazement. What? What did he say? Open relationships and polyamory? Hell, that's almost exactly what Gwen said, too. I can't believe they wrote that stupid script together. Wait, what? Where am I now? In a polyamorous relationship with a bisexual woman, I think. I started laughing hysterically again. I was sure Gwen could hear Clarissa laughing ringingly on the other end of the wire. Wow, Mark's on his knees crying and begging you? Lucky you. How's Gwen taking it? You should have seen her face. She's kind of in a stupor and just can't understand what's going on. Well, I think it's time for us to get on with it. Nice talking to you. Let's meet up as soon as the dust settles. Bye-bye, Clarissa. The confusion on Gwen's face was replaced by a realization of humiliation as she realized how and what I was talking to Mark's wife about, and that the cheaters' elaborate plan had blindly led them into the trap Clarissa and I had set for them. I wonder if all cheaters are that empty-headed. Gwen started our conversation in control and lost everything in the blink of an eye, not even realizing I had all the trump cards in my hand. I don't think I've ever felt as powerful as I did in those moments. After I finished talking to Clarissa, I headed for our home office and returned with 2 envelopes and a pen. I handed one of them to Gwen. "We were going to hand the documents to you both at your office, but you should see how much they charge for such a service. I even wondered for a minute if I was in the wrong business. Actually, this whole plan was Clarissa's idea. I can tell you in confidence that behind that sweet and caring person is a very cunning and devious mind. Well, anyway, here's the subpoena. There's a separation agreement inside," I said, handing Gwen one of the 2 envelopes. "It's nothing special, but it just says that you'll have to move out of the house, divide our finances, and agree to temporary custody of Jake. In the meantime, we'll sleep in separate rooms and be nothing more than housemates. Oh, and one more thing. It also says here that Mark is not to come within 100 feet of this house or interact with Jake in any way. Charlotte is an adult, so she will decide for herself if she wants to date Mark or not. Can you sign this agreement so I can give a copy to my lawyer?" Gwen stared lethargically at the papers lying in front of her that needed to be signed. From the look on her face, I was pretty sure the meaning of the letters, words, and sentences couldn't make their way into her clouded brain. She just sat there staring dumbly at the unopened envelope and looking dazed, unable to comprehend what exactly was going on. How?" was all she could squeeze out, realizing there was no point in continuing to play her charade in front of me. "You want to ask me how I know?" I sat down next to her again and pulled out the contents of the second envelope. "I'm afraid I've known for a long time. I'm not sure exactly when you started cheating on me, but I can guess. Here." I swatted the stack of papers from the second envelope with my fist. "Are some of the text messages you exchanged with that asshole Mark. It's amazing how many explicit words and phrases there are. You've never said such filthy and dirty things to me." "Were you going through my phone?" she blurted out. "Well, obviously, otherwise I wouldn't have all this evidence on my hands." Then I laid out some pictures of her and Mark, kissing passionately, hugging, going on dates, having dinner together, and looking very much like a couple in love. Those pictures alone were in themselves murderous evidence of Gwen's infidelity. "So, you've been following us?" Gwen asked incredulously, glancing briefly at the photos and immediately averting her eyes. I nodded. "Clarissa and I split the cost of a private investigator. This picture hurts the most," I said, flicking the image of Gwen and Mark entering the hotel to her. "I can remind you, in case you've forgotten, it happened on my birthday. You told me then that you had to leave on a business trip. Instead, you went to the hotel with Mark. It doesn't take a genius to figure out what you were doing there, does it? Hell, you couldn't even give me one day to yourself. That was low even for you, Gwen. Did I deserve such disrespect from my own wife? I didn't mean to deceive you," Gwen mumbled confusedly, trying to construct some defense and justification for her actions. It just happened. You were always working and you were never with me. I was lonely and Mark became a good friend in the office and I liked the attention he gave me. Then, one thing led to another and we fell in love. If you'd been home more often, maybe this would never have happened." Her tone changed from excusing to accusing at the end of her confession, and she went on the counterattack, as if I was as much, if not more, to blame for her infidelity than she was. Then Gwen picked up and began to stare perplexed at the picture with a few text messages on it. "Wait, that's from Mark's cell phone," she exclaimed. "Well, honey, you didn't mean to deceive me, and I didn't mean to spy on you. It just happened," I said, ironically echoing Gwen's own words. "You got a text from Mark while you were taking a shower. You probably needed it after coming home from your optional Kama Sutra class with him. I was already suspicious of your behavior, especially since your work clothes had taken on a more salacious appearance, and on top of that I discovered sexy lingerie I'd never seen you wear before. I only caught a glimpse of part of the message, but it was enough to pique my interest and look through the other correspondences on your phone. And what? I came across a bunch of messages. When I figured out what kind of character you were actively texting, I checked to see if Mark was married. Turns out he's got 3 kids, younger than our Jake." "How could you, Gwen?" She was silent, lowering her eyes and looking somewhere down and away, so I continued. I then contacted Clarissa via Facebook. She's a very nice lady and in no way deserved the dirty tricks you both pulled behind her back. Once she saw the evidence, we met and agreed to share everything we had. Recalling one of the last phrases Gwen had uttered, I spoke more harshly to her. I can't believe you're blaming me for your affair. Where do you think the money for Charlotte's university tuition comes from? Where do you think we get the money for a mortgage so we can live in a nice house? And where do you think the money comes from to make sure we have decent food on the table so we can feed Jake? It's called responsibility, Gwen. Apparently, I'm the only one of us who takes his responsibilities seriously. I spat out the undeniable fact. In spite of the anger building up inside me, I remained perfectly calm outwardly, and I didn't yell at my wife, losing my head. In the situation I was in, the reaction of a cheating husband could be twofold. Either to go into a fit of rage, yelling at Gwen and blaming her for everything, or to cry and beg her to come back, promising to be a better husband. The truth was that I'd already been through all that. Clarissa and I had supported each other through the entire process of discovering the infidelity. My main feeling now was relief. Relief that this nightmare was coming to an end. A thought popped into my head and I sent a few short messages. A few seconds later, Gwen's cell phone rang. I realized from the screams coming from the receiver in a familiar voice that it was Charlotte. Honey, I can explain everything," Gwen desperately pleaded with our daughter. "It wasn't like that. No, listen to me. Please, no, you don't have to do this. Charlotte, I love you. Wait, honey, hello?" Gwen slowly took the receiver away from her ear and began to sob. "Why did you tell Charlotte? You had no right to do that. She doesn't want to see me anymore. How could you?" My soon-to-be ex-wife came at me screaming like a madwoman. "No, I had the right to do it," I argued vehemently. "It's called consequences, Gwen. By the way, I told everything to Jake and our parents, too." "What?" Gwen screamed at me again in horror, and at that moment her phone started blaring again. This time it was a call from her mother-in-law. Mom, please listen to me. Gwen couldn't get a word in edgewise as her mother angrily reprimanded her negligent daughter. She looked like a miserable and completely broken woman now. "She wants to talk to you." A few minutes later, a visibly hurt Gwen, whom her mother had apparently cut to pieces, said quietly as she handed me her phone. "Hi, Jill," I greeted my mother-in-law in a steady voice. "Matt, I apologize again for what I did to Gwen. It's not the way we raised her. I admit we weren't sure about you when she got pregnant with Charlotte, but you acted like a real man and became a decent husband and father. You're the best thing that could have happened to Gwen, and I'm sorry you didn't get the same from her in return." "I think Gwen realizes that now," I said, looking at my wife and seeing her look away again and bite her trembling lip. "Charlotte doesn't want to see her anymore. It's probably best if Jake comes home tomorrow, when we've both calmed down a bit. I'm sure his mom will try to explain everything. I know he was upset when I briefly told him all of this over the phone." "Good luck to you, Matt. Please stay in touch. I'd be sad not to see you again," Jill asked me with genuine sadness in her voice. "Goodbye, Jill, and thank you." I disconnected the phone, put it on the table, and looked at Gwen intently. "Listen, I want you to know that I haven't informed anyone at your work about the connection with Mark. I know they have a strict no-relationship policy between employees. Although I was willing to tell them everything, Clarissa talked me out of it because she was worried about losing child support and any spousal support in the divorce." Gwen sighed with obvious relief when she heard those words. "Besides, I was willing to move you into a spare room, but I'm not sure I could sleep in our bedroom again because you stained both yourself and our bed. It was your own personal Valentine's Day shit show. Thank you for trampling on our special night." Gwen continued to remain silent, just staring at me dumbly and looking completely alone and broken. Since then, I never celebrated Valentine's Day again. It became a poisonously bitter reminder of what Gwen had done to me on that holiday. She completely ruined our previously always special evening. I first met David at the student bar in college. I had seen him before and thought he was the strong and silent type. When he was in a group of other students, he never dominated the conversation. His participation was usually limited to answering questions. He paid attention to people and seemed polite and caring, a good listener. When he sat alone, he appeared deeply thoughtful, always serious and usually sad. He would change his facial expression and attitude if anyone joined him. He was an enigma that I wanted to solve. One day, when the tables were full, I asked permission to join him. He said it would be an honor and pretended it was true. His joy seemed to emerge when I spoke to him. He smiled, and I managed to get him to laugh at some of my self-deprecating jokes. We stayed in a state of constant conversation until he said he had to go to class. I told him that I enjoyed talking to him. "I did too," he replied. Damn, he was so nice. 2 days later, he was in the same spot, and I asked him if he was saving a spot for me next to him. Yes, I was guarding him at the cost of my life. We talked again, and he laughed easier than the first time. I loved seeing him smile. I knew I was falling in love with him. Fast. After a few more encounters, I wondered if he was ever going to ask me out. I took the initiative. "Dave, I just asked a friend to get me some tickets to a Phil Collins concert. He and his friend have an emergency, and they gave me the tickets. Would you like to go?" "Don't you have a boyfriend who could drive you?" I felt like he was trying to find an excuse not to go with me. "Hey, if you don't want to go..." "No, I'm sorry. I'm just surprised a nice girl like you doesn't have a boyfriend. I wasn't insulting you." I moved closer to him. "I'm nice, aren't I? Tell me, how good am I?" He smiled. "You're beautiful, smart, and very witty. That's my favorite trait about you. Heck, I was hoping for sexy." He blushed. He really did blush. "Nancy, you're taking me out of my comfort zone. Yes, I do think you're sexy, but I don't want our relationship to be based solely on looks. I'd like to get to know you better, but know is not in the biblical sense. Right now, I'd love to go to a concert with you." We went to a concert. I had a great time, and he seemed to enjoy it. We walked back to my dorm. He hugged me. No kiss, not even on the cheek. My estimation of my attractiveness took a hit. After a few weeks of constant seeing each other, I was worried again. "Dave, don't you like me?" "Of course I like you very much." "Then why don't you ask me out?" "I'd like to, but are we going down a path that could end up with us getting married? There's no reason to go down that path if we have no chance of getting married. I need 2 things before I seriously start dating a girl. I need to meet her parents, who need to approve of me dating her, and she needs to know that I don't want to have kids. Think about what I just said. If you agree, set up a day and time to meet with your parents. Please understand that even if you agree to these 2 things and we date, it doesn't necessarily mean we will get married. It's just that I won't go on a trip until you do." I was stunned. Most of the guys I'd had didn't want to date my parents. I think the look in their eyes that said, "I just want to get in her panties," was too obvious if my parents looked at them face to face. The "no kids" statement wasn't that unusual and could probably be revisited later. I didn't really feel that strongly one way or the other. Dave blew my idea of men out of the water. I called my parents, who were immediately puzzled as to how serious our relationship was if he wanted to meet them. My father asked me if I was pregnant. My mother was ready to plan a wedding. I told them to behave themselves and not spoil it all. One evening, we met up with my parents. Dave started the conversation after some small talk and then got to the point. "Mr. and Mrs. Jackson, I appreciate your willingness to meet with me before Nancy and I start dating. I asked for this because I don't date casually. I view dating as a step toward marriage if and only if things go well. Will things go well for Nancy and me? I have no idea yet. All I know is that I'd like to find out. My other problem is that I do not plan on having children with my wife. I hope you realize that my reasons for this are too personal for me to disclose. I know how some parents look forward to having grandchildren. If this is unacceptable to you, I will respect your decision and not date Nancy." Having heard what I had to say, I ask your permission to date your daughter. A long pause ensued before my father finally spoke. "Although Nancy is an adult and doesn't need our permission, I appreciate you talking to us first. I see no problem in giving our consent for the 2 of you to date. I can't speak for my wife. Dave, I want Nancy to choose who she dates based solely on her own feelings. Of course, I want grandchildren, but having a happy daughter is more important. You have my blessing for today." Dave and I thanked them and left. I gave him a big hug before we stepped off the porch. He was smiling. I really liked his smile. Our dating life started from that night. Dave said the right things and did the right things on our dates. We became more intimate in our kisses and touching each other. We dated exclusively for a year, and I thought we had reached a plateau, a good plateau, but I wondered if we were stuck or if we were going anywhere from here. "Dave, I love you. If you love me, tell me where you think we are headed as a couple." "Nancy, I love you very much. I think it's time we talked about marriage. I hope it doesn't scare you as much as it scares me." "Scare me?" "Dave, sometimes you seem completely ignorant. If you ask me a question, I say yes." "Well, then I'm asking. Nancy Jackson, will you marry me?" "Wait a minute, let me think about it." "Okay, yes." We got married after graduation in a simple wedding to save money. A few months later, we both had good jobs. Dave turned out to be great in bed and seemed to like a lot of foreplay before sex. He didn't turn out to be timid like the virgin I thought he was. He never said anything about the women he dated and or had sex with. Neither of us ever talked about my apparent lack of virginity. Dave was great around the house and willingly shared household chores. He often asked if he was doing enough to help. I always received compliments on my cooking, cleaning, laundry, and especially my ability to satisfy him in bed. My female co-workers were very jealous. Our home life was full of energy centered on companionship, caring, love, sex, and laughter. To save money, we rarely ate out and stayed in to play board or card games instead of going to the movies or concerts. An old movie on DVD and popcorn were common Friday night activities along with cuddling. The only thing that surprised me about Dave was that he turned out to be the consummate tease and joker. That was supposed to be my forte, so I wasn't about to relent. It was as if April Fool's Day came to our house at least once a month. I still smile just thinking about those days and some of the pranks we pulled on each other. Almost a year after we were married, a major incident happened. At the time, I was afraid I might lose my husband over it. Despite being on the pill regularly, I became pregnant. 3 home pregnancy tests and 2 tests at the doctor's office were positive. I was afraid to tell him. I didn't want to lose him. I held back until he noticed the morning sickness and asked what was wrong. The dam broke and I blurted out, "I'm pregnant. I'm so sorry." I shed some serious tears. Dave didn't change his stoic expression. After a pause, he said, "Let's talk about it after you calm down." It took me a few minutes to calm down before he asked, "What do you really want?" "Dave, I want to have a baby, but if you want me to, I'll keep the promise I made to you to live a child-free life. I'll agree to give the baby up for adoption, but I won't have an abortion. You can decide for us whether to keep the baby or give it up for adoption. I hope we keep it." "Nancy, I don't believe in killing babies either. I was very touched when you said you wanted to keep him. That tells me a lot about your love and our marriage. I truly believe in supporting you as much as you support me. I will have to give up my previous position for you. For me to be happy in our marriage, you have to be happy. I agree to let you keep the baby. I promise to be the best father I can be. You will never hear a word of regret from me." I ran up and threw myself into his arms with tears of joy. Krista was born, and she was beautiful. Dave had kept his word, and I couldn't have wished for a better father for a child. She was only 6 months old when he surprised me again. "I don't think it's good for a baby to be the only one. How about giving her a brother or sister in a year or so? You can stay home and be a mom for a while. I'll have a vasectomy after our second child is born." I was stunned. All I could squeeze out was a weak, "Okay." Melody was born almost exactly 2 years after Krista. I quit my job for a few years and then went back to my old job. I never once detected a problem with Dave's attitude towards his parents. That's not to say I didn't suspect he had some issues. I just wasn't sure what the problem was or what to do about it. As he had earlier in college, Dave would sometimes sit alone in his chair and seemed to sink into his thoughts. Sometimes it frustrated him to the point of tears. As wonderful as he was in every way that you would want a husband to be, I got the impression that he was hiding something from me, our marriage and our family. It seemed like he wasn't fully prepared to be my husband and the girl's father. Since I had more good stories about my husband in my married life than most of my girlfriends had about their lives, I blessed my lucky stars for what I had. Today, with an older girl in college and a second girl getting ready to enter college, I reviewed life in the empty nest. I remembered how exciting dating was before marriage and what sex with Dave was like for the first time in marriage. For the first year, we hardly ever left the bedroom on weekends. 2 kids, working and paying bills year after year seemed to drain the thrill of marriage like a balloon losing helium. I really missed the good old days when we were first married and it was just the 2 of us. We had a lot of fun. I was struggling to find a new purpose in my life. There was a hole in my life that was being filled by my kids. How could I fill that hole now? Having an affair was an option I sometimes considered because of the offers I was getting from some very handsome men. Men still hit on me, even at my age. Some felt that my marriage enhanced my qualities rather than hindered them. There were a couple of times when the right man and the right circumstances seemed to assure me that my husband was unlikely to find out if I lost my way. But I never did anything more than flirt. We often teased each other about having an office wife and an office husband. I spent a lot of time watching Dave, which I don't think he was aware of. There were times like before when I would see Dave staring off into space with a sad expression on his face. I'd ask if something was bothering him and he'd say, "Nothing." I knew it was for a reason. I suspected there was some tragedy in his past that he was uncomfortable sharing. What could I do? Then one day it hit me. Laughter was what I missed most compared to before. Dave would do anything to make me laugh, and vice versa. I had one of those snorting laughs. When I took a breath while laughing, I sounded like a snort. This, in turn, caused more laughter and so on, until we both cried with laughter. For several years, until the kids were all grown up, we played pranks on each other for laughs and fun. This practice seemed to have died down. We may have thought we should set a more mature example for our children. Now, I thought it was time to start the pranks again, especially since it would soon be April. Our marriage could be revitalized. I spent the weeks leading up to April 1st working on organizing my prank. I talked about the new man in the office and how all the women were crazy about him. I bragged about how Evan danced when we had an office party that Dave couldn't make it to. I started working overtime at work and having a bachelorette party once a week. When I got home, I would shower before I went to bed. I nagged him about doing his chores around the house. I complained that I had to redo many of his chores around the house because he wasn't doing it right. I overcooked, undercooked, or otherwise ruined many of our dinners. Despite his irritated expression, he didn't complain about anything, but he looked ready to explode. When the 1st of April came, I was anxious but prepared. It was about 6 o'clock in the evening when the doorbell rang. "Dave, open up. Anyway, it's probably for you." "Isn't it, Nancy? I guess it doesn't matter that you're only 10 feet from the door." "I'm tired. It wouldn't kill you to do something nice for me for a change." Dave reluctantly headed for the door. I knew what awaited him there. There stood a woman our age with a bag in her hands, her head down. She looked nothing like what I thought a server should look like. Dave greeted her. "Yes, can I help you?" "Are you David Livingston?" She looked at her feet. "Dave." "Yes." "Could you show me some identification, please?" He pulled out his wallet and showed his driver's license. The good part was about to come. I almost giggled in anticipation. "Did you go to Anderson County High School?" I wondered why she asked that. It wasn't part of the script. "Yeah, why do you ask?" "Did you go out with a girl named Allison Kirk? What's going on?" I got up and headed for the door. Dave got really upset, but finally answered, "Yes, we were dating, but then she left. I'm afraid to say, but she died years ago." The girl raised her head and looked him in the eyes. "I'm alive, Dave. I'm here and more alive than ever." David looked at her again. His eyes got big. I thought he was going to faint. "Allie? Allie? Oh my God, is that really you?" Now her face was full of tears. "Yeah, but, your parents told me you were dead. They said you killed yourself because of me. It was a lie to keep you from trying to find me." David reached out and pulled her to him. They embraced and kissed. It seemed like they would never stop. "I thought I would never see you again in this life. Please come in before I have a heart attack." They went and sat next to each other on the couch. I walked over to my deep armchair. They were holding hands and giggling like 2 giddy teenagers. I was completely ignored, and it made me angry. I intervened. Excuse me, you two. Dave, can you tell me what the hell is going on here? Who is this woman and why are you groping her on all sides? Nancy, this is Allison Kirk, my first and only true love. I never told you about her because it brought back too many sad memories. I thought she was dead. Her being here is a miracle to me. Your one true love? I beg your pardon. Who am I then? Allison and I were head over heels in love in high school. We were sure we'd get married and start a family after graduation. Her parents were very conservative and were against me as a potential son-in-law. We weren't even allowed to date. Allison would sneak out of the house late at night. When everything was forbidden, sex didn't seem so forbidden. We were getting married soon. We had sex whenever we could. One day I ran out of condoms, so we took a chance. Allison got pregnant. We planned to elope and get married, but Allison was too young to sign for herself. We needed at least one of her parents to sign the contract. We hoped that her pregnancy and my desire to marry her would convince them to sign the contract, but shortly after Allison told her parents, they took her and left. To this day, I never heard from her. Her parents called out of the blue a few months after they left and told me that Allison had killed herself over a child out of wedlock. The baby died when she did. Dave then turned to Allison in tears. Allison, what happened to our baby? Did you have an abortion? No, I didn't want to, and my parents wouldn't have let me anyway. They made up a story and told everyone that my husband was in the army and was killed. Actually, our son is in his last year of college now. He has my intelligence and your athletic body. I hope you get to meet him soon. When I told him about you after my parents' funeral, he said he wanted to meet you as soon as possible. What's his name? I wanted to name him after you at birth, but my parents wouldn't allow it. Until recently, his name was Justin. I officially changed his name to David Austin Livingston Jr. with his full approval. Dave was now sobbing like a baby. Of course I want to meet him. Somebody pinch me. I can't believe this is happening. I spoke up. I can't either. David, this has gone far enough. Please ask this man to leave our home immediately. You and I have some important matters to discuss. Alone. There was a look of angry determination on Dave's face like I'd never seen before. No, I lost Allison once and I'm not going to lose her again. I sat there in shock. Dave continued his questions. Allison, what happened to you when you were taken away? My parents gave me an ultimatum. Leave with them or they would never support me again. Dave, I was a pregnant teenager with no financial support other than my parents. You had no money to feed yourself, let alone a family. It pained me to part with you, but I didn't have much choice. I went with them and kept my promise to never contact you. I had to agree to this so they wouldn't put our baby up for adoption. I lived in hell for 20 years. If I didn't have our son, I probably would have killed myself. I thought many times about how I could reach out to you in a way that they wouldn't find out. They threatened to take Justin away from me, and I would never see him or them again. They watched me like hawks. I didn't have my cell phone. I didn't have my own money. I never went out with other people unless they were with me. It was weird. They even took me to the lie detector guy periodically and asked me if I was trying to contact you. Everything changed overnight when my parents died in a car accident 6 months ago. Suddenly, I had the hope of seeing you that had been suppressed for so long. Dave, it took me the last few months to find you. I found information about you. When I found out you were married, I almost gave up. I didn't want to ruin a happy marriage. Instead, I watched you and your home to see if I could determine if you were happily married. I'm not ashamed to admit that I hoped you weren't. Then today, some young woman came up to my car and asked if I knew where David Livingston lived. I pointed to your house. She said, "Damn it, I hate serving people." She told me that your wife had filed for divorce. I took it as a sign from God. I bribed her to let me do it. I assumed that if your wife was divorcing you, I might have a chance to live again. With you. Was someone going to serve me? She held out a package to Dave. "Oh yes, David, you've been served." He took the package and started to open it. I shouted, "Please don't open it." It was an April Fool's joke. Just ignore it. He reread the document. I could see the anger building on his face. If Allison hadn't shown up, getting that divorce petition would still have broken my heart. Nancy, how could you be so angry? I guess I should thank you, though. I have absolutely no guilt for Allison and me now. He turned to Allison and took her hands in his. Please tell me you're not married. Of course not. I've never even been interested in another man. Does it upset you that I got married? Dave, you thought I was dead. You did what you had to do to survive. I can't hold it against you for that. Allison Kirk, will you marry me? I screamed. What did you just say? Oh, yes, Dave, yes, 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 yes. They hugged. You can't marry her, damn it. You're married to me. Not for long. He took out a pen and signed the papers. Now the marriage is over. It's not going to work. I'm going to refuse to get a divorce. We're still married. Oh, that's fine. I'll just file my own papers as soon as I can. I'll be as fair as I can be. Allison has spoken. Dave, don't fight about money. I have a good job and my parents left me quite a bit of money. You could leave her all your money and we'd be fine. I was seething with anger. What about me? I'm not going to be okay. The main thing I want is him, not his money or property. Damn it, Dave. We've had 20 years of marriage and 2 kids, for God's sake. What are the girls going to think about you leaving me for an old girlfriend? Nancy, I'm holding your divorce papers in my hand. It pretty much says you don't want me as a husband anymore. You've made it clear that the new guy at work is the one for you, and you've probably been together before. I think the girls will understand when I tell them the whole story. In the long run, they'll probably love Allison and their new brother. I told you it was an April Fool's joke. I wasn't really going to divorce you. The new guy at work is a myth. I just wanted to do something stupid and pull one of my pranks. I wanted to put some spark back into our marriage. I'm afraid you've stifled the spark that was there if that's really the case. I think what you're doing is more of a you don't want me until someone else wants me provocation. Allison, give me a minute to get some things together. He headed upstairs to our bedroom. So there we sat, the 2 women, his true love and his stupid wife or ex-wife, depending on how you look at it. Allison spoke up. Mrs. Livingston, I'm sorry to break it to you like this, but David and I have something eternal between us. I really think our reunion was predestined. Just be happy for the many years you had him. I would have loved to have lived those years with him. Instead, those 20 years have been sheer agony for me. I love him more than life itself. You husband-stealing snake, I should kill you. No threats, bribes, delaying tactics, or anything else will stop us now. This is the moment I've waited too long for, and I'm not going to give it up for you or anyone else. We deserve a chance at some happiness in our lives. What about happiness in my life? What have I done to deserve it? What are you whining about? I never would have gone near him until I found out you were divorcing him. Are you deaf? It was a goddamn joke. April Fool's joke. You're pathetic. How do you torture someone you claim to love more than anyone else? You're so cruel. I hope we never see your ugly face again. Don't count on it. I'll fight this divorce tooth and nail. Dave came downstairs with a couple of packed bags. He turned to me. I know this sounds sudden, but thinking about Allison was what made me look so pensive and sad at times. I thought about what I had lost when Allison and our baby died. Nancy, I really cared about you and our marriage until the last few months. Frankly, I'm not surprised you filed for divorce. It was obvious you didn't like me anymore, and you thought you had better options with the men in your office. I suspected you were cheating during the working late sessions. Like I said, I'll be fair in the divorce. I think it would be best for us to have no further contact except through our attorneys. Allison, can we go meet our son now? Of course, my love. They kissed. I couldn't remember him ever kissing me so passionately. I watched them walk to their cars. She was first, and he followed on her heels. So much for my April Fool's joke. And then it hit me. You're an idiot! That was David's April Fool's joke on me. I started laughing. That son of a bitch got me. He got me good. I wonder where he got Allison or whatever her name is. She's actually a great actress. I expected them to come back for lunch and gloat about how they'd tricked me, but no, nor were they there in the morning. Holy crap, they're really playing this joke! It wasn't until I received his divorce papers that I finally realized it wasn't a joke. I tried to fight the divorce, but after 6 months of battling with counteroffers, it was clear that the 3 of them were already a new family without our divorce. I gave up, sold the house, and moved closer to the girls who, unfortunately for me, liked their new stepmother and older brother. They thought the miraculous reunion of their father, his true love, and his son was a momentous occasion. None of this, of course, made me sympathetic. Not much has changed in my life in the years since our divorce, except for the grandchildren, whom we share with all the courtesy I am capable of at family reunions. My worst time is when April first comes around, which reminds me of what happened. It wasn't all my fault. Who the hell reunites with their long-lost lover and son who are presumed dead? We could have ended up getting a divorce anyway, but I made it a lot easier with my shenanigans. I don't pull any more April Fool's pranks.